The next level of this, of course, is having a camera there
I know, yeah.
and one here. You have
Exactly.
these three frames, and then a dude with a laptop to look stuff up.
Exactly. Exactly.
That's clearly where we're going.
Yeah.
Um, and so, yeah, this is basically episode 1 of a long future of discussions with interesting people. You're one of those interesting people. Your name is Lion. How old are you?
I am 31, but I'll be 32 in August.
How does that feel?
Feels great.
Okay.
Yeah. Every day that I get older feels great. I love it.
Could you rationalize that way of thinking? Because a lot of people, I mean, myself included, I find some anxiety when I'm getting older. A day passes, I'm like, that's another day closer to something maybe I haven't done yet, or further away from something I was looking for. How does that work for you?
Yeah, it's an and. There's a part of me that will think, oh, well, I'm getting older now and I haven't done these things, which is good in a way, as maybe a reminder how I want to get certain things done. But the and comes in that, like, the more I live, the more I learn. And I have this philosophy that, like, this body is impermanent, but what I am, like what I really am, or like my essence is infinite. And it's like this cylinder that keeps like banking information. So I'm like, this is awesome. And that and allows me to not negate the human experience. I can be fully in it and enjoy it and all the things that come with it. And I'm not afraid of getting older. I look forward to being super old and wrinkly, as much as an ego death that's going to be.
Awesome.
Yeah.
And of course, coming from a Eckhart Tolle perspective of the first half of life is for expansion, the second half is joyfully for contraction, and feeling your material body fade away, you can start to experience what it's like to be less dependent on your materiality, which is a process I think a lot of people never get the opportunity to appreciate because they're so caught up in clinging to their material body and wishing that it lasted for longer. They never have the opportunity to experience the joy of contracting and of losing and slowly leaving the world.
Yeah, that's really beautiful. I just think about, or what came to me is like, imagine the cultural shift if that contraction, that's so beautiful. Yeah. Things contract. It's like rhythm, expand and contract. If that contraction was really welcomed and revered and celebrated, like, oh, you're moving into contraction, or eldership was more revered. And
right.
I believe that will happen. It's definitely happening. But yeah, there's a lot of fear. There's a lot of fear around dying and contracting. And it's so obvious with how, like, look at cosmetics, surgery, and like, it's really hard to tell who's doing what and what's real when it comes to physical appearance, and all result of the fear of death or the fear of losing the physical body. And I get it. Like, I as I've gotten older, I haven't been able, there's certain things that are in my body where I've experienced, I'm like, oh, that I'm more sore than I would have expected, or more tired. And fortunately, though, I've had 10 years of dosing myself with various spiritual concepts and yada yada, all that kind of stuff. And when that does come up, I'm like, oh, okay, like, what do I want to do with this relationship?
This is such an interesting topic of kind of rejection of death, as something that is, you can be sure of will be happening. I mean, there are some people who say that's not the case and are working towards a kind of longevity of life. And that's something to talk about another time, but I'm interested in why you think in Western culture death is so feared. There's, we have embalming, we have the body being hidden away in a coffin, we have, as you're saying, makeup, cosmetics, the reverement of elders. In past cultures, elders are considered wise. They're considered to have lessons and learnings to give down. In our culture, it seems like elders are shunned, pushed away, rejected, like they don't have anything to give. The youth are the source of power in the culture. Why do you think that shift has happened?
So I'm getting distracted. Are we good? Okay, nice. Make for a comedic relief. Well, from what I've been exposed to in life and like what I've read and my whole life experiences led me to see that I believe some have to gain from a certain story that says that like you only live this life, and beauty and aesthetics in the physical body is like a very important and almost like completely all there is aspect to life. So there's an aspect of like people have to gain from that. Industries have to gain from that, and yeah, it allows for a mega manifestation of, I would say, industry and culture. Also, not to like, let's remove the finger of blame. I believe in like how that things move in cycles, and we have these really long cycles. I mean, everything has cycles. Like you can just think about the day. It's like a cycle, even though really the day doesn't exist. But you know what I mean. Sun goes up, sun goes down. These longer cycles. There's stages to those cycles, and in those cycles we as humans or as beings, like we come into like understanding and knowing what we really are, and then forgetting what we are. And what we are coming from is an age where material matter was believed to be all that there is, and the roles that we lived in were not questioned. And I think that's it's a byproduct of what we see. It's like if you really believe the material matter is what it is, and you try to manipulate it and change it and contort it, and you fear losing it because it seems real, and it is. But it's like it's real, and there's other stuff going on. So yeah, that's why I think it's like resulted in this type of way. And also on another note, I think it's good to say it's not bad. I want like this whole conversation, anyone who's listening to this, to realize it's like none of this is bad or good. It's really just what do you want to do with it? What do you want to do with it? That's so much more empowering than like, oh my God, the world's so fucked up. People are scared of dying. The cosmetic industry, plastic surgery, everyone's focused on their body. Like just like that. It's not bad. It just is what it is. What do we want to do with it? What does the other person want to believe about it? Right? I think that's more powerful. And that's the area we're coming from too. Like this good or bad, right or wrong. Those things exist, but we can like look at them and not get so attached. So I think it's that attachment, like so attached.
So this is a very like egotistical, I need to be right. I need to be more right than other people. My way of thinking needs to be correct because that makes me more likely to survive.
Mm-hmm. It's very, within the ego that's created to perpetuate the self that is isolated from everything else. That's like thinks that it lives and exists on its own. That like I am lion and over there's a plant and everything is just like doing its own thing, where that perpetuates like the fear of death and of course, like, and it's a powerful and useful. It's very useful because then it allows us to like enjoy the segregated experience, which I think really does have a place. It's so important, actually. It's just when you get too far into it, then everything's an enemy, and I need to make sure that this doesn't change. And what if it does change? It's definitely going to change. So we're going to run into a lot of paradoxes in this conversation.
Good. Yeah. Seems that truth only actually exists in paradoxes, like in a Socratic type of way. The ability, like a true mark of intelligence, is your ability to hold two conflicting ideas at the same time. And this, for me, is perfectly embodied by the law of polarity from the 7 Hermetic laws, which is what you're currently diving into even deeper with your groups, whereby both sides of the spectrum are true at the same time, and they both exist at the same time, and everything exists at some place along the spectrum at one time.
What you're saying kind of gets me thinking about spiritual bypassing. Spiritual bypassing is very linear, and it's like, these lower states are bad, these other states are good. We want to transcend. I know because I was there. I was like in that kind of place where it's like I want to transcend. I want to be of higher vibration, and the foolery or like getting fooled into that is just another layer of the ego thinking like all emotions are divine. Like you were saying the other day, it's like it's on a spectrum. So fear and transcendence, or shame and love, when you recognize that in the sphere of your experience is divine, and a willingness to work with it, but it's holy in all that it is, that's then you're not bypassing it, because you're like, okay, I'm going to actually feel the shame. And the funny thing is, you don't really care about transcending anymore. Like that's probably been with the whole spiritual bypassing thing, that's been like such a beautiful realization for me. It's like, I don't want to actually leave this experience. Like when I die, I'm down to die, but I'm not trying to get away like I was before. I was definitely like, oh, I gotta like meditate or like get somewhere with this, which is so funny.
I think this is an incredibly valuable topic to talk on, because this term spiritual bypassing perfectly explains something that I haven't been able to put into words. And I think the type of people who will go on to follow me are going to be people who have struggled with exactly this concept. And this is a concept I actually really was interested in addressing and fixing for my audience, because it's something that I've worked through and fixed as well, that you've just put into words: spiritual bypassing. So I'm looking to make videos to solve problems that I've solved in the past. That's my main motivation here, is I want to pick apart, understand, and then document the problem solution cycles that I've been through, and understand what that process looks like, how someone comes to a solution, why someone gets into a problem. I can then systematize those problems and offer them to people who trust me and they're very niche problems that we're talking about. Spiritual bypassing, this is a super niche problem that a specific type of person is going to be dealing with. But that's probably where a lot of our value lies, in solving these really niche problems. So yeah, I've definitely had a deep experience with this spiritual bypassing concept. And Eckhart Tolle, I think, really was a big part of that for me. I've learned so much from Eckhart Tolle, but I've in many ways from negative experiences that I've had thanks to those kind of teachings, because this kind of spirituality leads to escapism. You think that you can just completely leave and transcend the material world. I spent like a good 6 months practicing like not existing. Every day, all I was trying to do was just like not exist. I'd walk around. All I was doing was feeling my body and listening to the thoughts, and just not actually being there. And there's this demonization of the ego that happens. You get to a place where you're like, I hate the ego. The ego is the root cause of my problems. Like, the only reason why suffering exists is because this thing is there. I wanted to get to a state where I could be starving, I could be drowning, I could be burning alive, and it wouldn't bother me. And that was purely driven out of fear. And so a lot of people, especially me, they pursue a spiritual practice out of a place of needing to escape fear. I don't think that's a healthy motivator to actually explore spirituality. Spirituality needs to come from a place of love to truly be effective, because anything you generate out of fear is just going to lead to more fear. Because if I deeply need to cling to spirituality to escape fear, then when that goes away, I'm going to be in a deep, dark pit.
Exactly. Yeah, wait, you said something there. I totally lost my train of thought. I'm sorry. Let's see. Well, it's funny. Everything is spiritual for my... Well, maybe we should define what that means. But like...
Yeah. What is spirituality?
Well, there's kind of two ways I see it. There's one that is like your connection to a higher power, or your belief in a higher power, and thus the resulting kind of understanding or assuming that there is something of higher nature that can't be comprehended, that is either benevolent or has power to or of you, depending on like how, what your belief is. But there's another viewpoint. I say everything is spiritual because life in it of itself is like, because life in and of itself is the whole point, and there's no journey out there. Even if someone's a like NPC, meaning they're like they're just in the program, they're listening to the narrative, they do what they're told, still just as divine in anything else. And this comes back to the spiritual bypassing. Maybe this is the point. Is like it's super tricky, this level of the game, when you get like into spirituality, because the ego clings on to everything, and Yeah, it's that was what I was going to say, is that's Lucifer, that's the devil. When we get caught up and go, oh, like, this isn't real, and I need to transcend, and I need to be able to handle any situation without being affected by it, that's the devil. Because what does the devil do? It's like, here's this shiny light over here. This is actually God. I'm God over here. This experience. This isn't God. This is just human bullshit life. Let me show you what is really that. And that's the irony of it, right? Is like, I think the way that I've learned is that you come to experience that state and then you still live your life. And it's not that I don't feel shame or I'd have this ruminating thought that comes up. It's just that I can see that for what it is, and I can continue on and go, yeah, I love this. And even that voice realize, that's like everything that I hear or everything that is announced is not exactly who I am. So I can continuously watch that and enjoy that and be fully in this. And yeah, that's like, what am I trying to say here? There's no like place to get with that, you know? There's no place you have to arrive.
Yeah. That's, to me, the most beautiful conclusion you can arrive to. And I made a video about this yesterday. I stood there for like 5 hours yesterday. I just stood there. And I was in this place where I didn't need anything. Like, I didn't need to work. I noticed that all of the work I had done previously in my life was out of needing something. And I was just thinking, what would it look like? What would life look like if I was working out of a place of not needing anything? And instead I was working out of a place of giving and being joyful in the fact that I am able to give and I have something beautiful to give. What if that was the emotional state that fueled every action I took?
Yeah.
And so just standing there doing nothing for 5 hours was more valuable than stressed out, like typing and writing and stuff, because I wanted to cultivate and explore that state of not needing to move away from anything. Most of my work and the work I've done in the past, the videos I've made, the blog posts I've written have been out of a place of fear. I need to accumulate money so I can get away from X. Constantly changes. That's for another time. But like, that for me, I realized, okay, spirituality is only as good as your ability to re-enter the material world.
Yeah.
I fell deeply into this like spiritual rabbit hole where I couldn't engage with the material world. If I engage with the material world and it becomes real, then my spiritual force field is lost. Like, my spiritual defense mechanism is shut down and gone. I have to be not real so that real things can't affect me. But that's not a healthy spirituality. That's a neurotic rabbit hole that you can fall into. And there's so many of these. There's probably millions of meditators out there right now who have fallen into neurotic spiritual rabbit holes where they feel really trapped. I know there's a lot of that with dogmatic religion as well.
For sure. You can tell right away in yourself if you're judging anyone for their lack of being spiritual.
And I think Alan Watts said this, that they're like, the most ironic ego association is someone who associates with being a spiritual person. They have the clothes, like the baggy pants. They have like the man bun. They have the kind of spiritual tattoos, and their ego is fueled by the fact that they are more spiritual than someone else. And it's like, oh, I'm more spiritual.
And it's super conniving.
Right.
It's super subtle, because now it's like you have this, it's like it's almost like you've transcended, but in a false way. But not like you think that you've become this thing, or like, you know, I've heard people like, oh, I'm like in the fifth dimension. I'm like, bro, there's no way you're in the fifth. I mean, maybe you can experience the fifth dimension, but if you're talking to me right now, you're super, or like, I don't have my ego anymore. I'm like, bro, like, you definitely have your ego, and there's nothing wrong with that.
Good.
Yeah, it's a great, fantastic thing.
Great thing.
It's really amazing. And I want to reel it back quickly what you said, because it's super beautiful. It's very abundant mindset.
Yeah,
you know, like,
there's a lot to go in there.
Just to bring it, we can go right back, but just to bring up that, like, there's is it a parable or something where it's like, don't ask what God can give to you, ask what you can give to God, or don't ask what you can take from the world, but ask what you can give to the world. And it's exactly what you just said. It's not, and that's like, I'm taking a little bit of that juice, because it's super easy to just forget and be like, okay, what do I need? Money. I need to make this. I need to make my landing page, whatever it is. Instead, what do I want to give?
Get to do those things to help people.
Exactly. That's such a different vibration.
I've got this phrase which like perfectly encapsulates that, which is, I've been given gifts. My gift to the one who gave them is to give them to the best of my ability.
Gift to the one that gave. Nice, dude. Yeah.
Well, it's not. What is mine? I don't know. I've heard it.
No, I'm just
come up with it, but yeah,
it's really good though, man. It's really, really good.
There's real power in memorization, memorizing quotes, memorizing parables and phrases.
It is, because it keeps us remembering.
There's a real magnetism to someone who's able to pull out a saying, a quote to fit any kind of situation. I want to be a person like that, where a situation arises and I can say something. I mean, I spent the week with Justin Mucci at that event last week, and he has he's deeply studies the Bible, and he has so many of these phrases to just fit every situation. I thought it was really interesting. My favorite one was, "It's just the flesh." Anytime anyone complains or was kind of annoyed or got injured in a little bit, he's just like, "It's just the flesh." Like, whoa.
Powerful.
That's really cool.
It is, yeah.
It's just the flesh.
You have something in your human design, a channel that's for that,
For what?
Exactly what you just said.
Oh, for quotes.
Yeah, it's literally this gate 33, which is the gate of retreat and privacy, like coming into oneself to like make sure you have the right information. And then the 13th gate, which is the prodigal son. So it's like from your past experiences and listening to others, being able to bring forward a story.
The prodigal son is a Bible parable, biblical parable. Is this related to that story?
I think so. So the prodigal son, like there's like two, right? And one stayed at home and one went away.
I think it's three, but similar.
Was it three? Oh yeah. Well, you tell me if this is what you remember. Like one went away, but then he still got some of the land, even though he went away. And one of the sons is like, "What the fuck?" One
stayed at home. One went away and invested unwisely. One went away and invested wisely and made a profit. And the one who returned home, having invested wisely, making a profit, I think was the prodigal son.
Okay.
Don't quote me on
Yeah, I was looking into it sometime.
Yeah.
I don't know quite the connection. Maybe there's something about like this channel is meant to go around and listen to people's stories and then reshare the stories, but you're like the keeper of the past wisdom keys, So that's what made me think of. And I find that is it a very in the now? It's more, it's throat and G center. So it's like a manifested energy and then like a monopole, like feeling kind of energy. But I've always found that I'm able to say the right things in the right time, in these types of contexts as well. It's like, you do too.
There's a danger for me here with confirmation bias. Yeah. Well, yes, I want to say yes.
Yeah.
I need to search for, I understand the kind of mechanisms of confirmation bias, and I want to actually have evidence before I agree with.
Yeah.
But
sure. Just sharing an insight that I'm observing.
No, I'm just making that as like a mental flag for myself, because that's a kind of rule I want to lay down. Is I want to be very grounded in logic. Which
that's a good. What you just said, grounded.
I have one of my oldest friends studied physics. Deeply studies physics and I was amazed at the reason he gave for studying physics, which was he was scared of insanity. For him, he studied physics as as something to cling to. Like, imagine you're at the bottom of a void and all you've got to cling to is like one rock or piece of land. And for him, it was like, I need this grounding, this foundation of physics, which is kind of the base rules of the universe, so I can build truth upon that. Yeah. If I have, like, epistemologically, if I don't have a kind of, where does knowledge come? Where's the core of knowledge? For him, it was physics. Right. I was like, whoa, that's a crazy reason to study physics, to like have a grounding in reality of these physical laws, which are immutable. They cannot change.
It's really good. Going back to what we said, the person who's lost in their spiritual ego, a term that I think I got it from someone else, grounded spirituality. There's no point in getting caught up in a spiritual concept if it can't actually be brought into, it can't be applied or like used. So very
utilitarian.
What's that?
Very like utilitarian.
Yeah, just like, well, I mean, we can talk about certain things philosophically. Like sometimes I like talking about the all, like, like that it's all that is and ever is, and the really expanding out into like, okay, if the universe is infinite, everything's possible, but it's like, but at the end, is that really useful?
Cool.
So like grounding our spiritual knowledge and being like, how am I going to use this? Because one learning I had from my journey is that I had inflated myself because I had all this spiritual knowledge, but it was really just like a means to demonstrate what I knew, or be like, I know what's going on more than anyone else knows what's going on. But if it doesn't show up in the material world, then, or at least you can't use it, then it's again kind of luciferic. It's negating you from, I think, what's going on in our lives. So again, we have to be careful, right? We're like always riding this balancing point between, like, I want to be inspired by what I believe or what I have found to be these truths, like Hermetic principles and these grandiose concepts. And then I really want to bring it down into this realm, that kind of as above, so below. Use the higher realms to work on the lower planes, the lower realms, but understand where we are and utilize that.
Really cool. This is something I've never dived into. I mean, I read the Kabbalion after you recommended it. Mm-hmm. And of course, I felt like I was remembering instead of learning.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, I know this. I knew this. Yeah, this is clear. This is true. Felt right. Just integrated, rediscovering, right? Mm-hmm. But I really am interested in what you're saying here in terms of actually the application mm-hmm. of these principles, and not just these principles, but all the spirituality. What you're kind of focusing on is how can we take spirituality and use it to better play the game.
Exactly.
Because if the first thing spirituality allows us to do is recognize that we're playing a game. Mm-hmm. And it's like, okay, this initial transcendence experience, like most people who've meditated or discovered spirituality in some way have had a transcendent experience where it's like, whoa, what if I'm not a body? And what if I don't need to be so strongly identified with pain? Mm-hmm. And so spirituality serves as a gateway to escape pain and to escape suffering. Mm-hmm. Well, what if the next level, like that's good, mm-hmm. that's great. But what if the next level above that is actually spirituality becomes a tool to allow us to more deeply play the game? If I'm able to better tolerate fear, and if I'm able to sit with fear, and I'm able to experience life so much more richly if I'm no longer attached to the outcomes of the material world. Mm-hmm. If I no longer need a certain material experience in order to be happy, I'm able to play the game and actually enjoy being scared mm-hmm. and enjoy being hurt and enjoy being in grief, enjoy my breakup. There's this great Louis C.K. Sketch, which is like he's talking to this old man about being really sad that he lost his wife. And the old man is like, you are an idiot. It's like, what I would give to be where you are right now. He's like, isn't this the bad part of a breakup? He's like, no, the bad part of a breakup is when you forget about her and you don't feel anything at all. Mm-hmm. So he's basically saying from his ancient wisdom that the best part of a breakup is the grief. Right. Or the best part of the relationship in his eyes was like the deep sadness and grief, because he was able to just feel alive because of that negativity. So spirituality for me allows you to play the game deeply. How deeply can you feel grief? That's beautiful.
100%, exactly. And, bringing in the embodiment piece. When we learn to ground any sort of insight, don't even have to call it spirituality. Everyone has had this before. We can remove the label, that feeling of like, this is profound. This is invigorating something in me that I may not have words for, and it changes our lives, it changes our direction. That is not a means to go away from this experience. It's a means to dive in deeper. It's a means to fully, because we're at the cutting edge of existence. It's the present moment.
Cool.
Right? And what does God or any deity, whatever you want, the universe want more than anything? To be expressed. Well, God isn't manifested into anything. Well, everything, but through everything, right? So we get to glorify God and the universe and Krishna through all that we do. So if we're trying to like get away from all this and like, get caught up in what was, like take that information and use it, but use it now and do something with it now. And all what you were just describing, like going through grief or like really being the experience, that's the most divinely amazing thing that there ever was and ever is. And it brings back the beauty of anecdote. A lot of times when I'm working with men and they're like, how do I know if I've had an energy orgasm? I'm like, Like, dude, I can tell you what it's like for me, but you will know. And you have to, and that's even a level of the game, is like not being able to give yourself the permission to say that you had it. One thing I've learned through medicine, do you know what I mean? Like, okay, so I don't know if you've ever had this where people are describing like profound experiences. Like, I was talking to spirits, I was doing this, da, da, da. And what I've learned is that, sometimes these things are so nuanced, and I'm sure people have had very like seemingly real experiences, but I've had nuanced experiences with, like, say, other realm type of situations, and I had to place meaning on that, and that's what it was for me. And now when I describe that experience, I'm sure someone's like, whoa, like, how do you know? And it's like, because that's the meaning that I've placed on the experience. That's what I've chosen for it to be, and that's what my anecdote of it was. So I think, what am I trying to say here? Instead of grasping outside of ourselves again and like dismissing our experience, which is like way up in the air, it's like grounding it back down and having a willingness and a belief that we can manifest, let's say, the spiritual knowledge. We can bring it into the material world. We can have that for ourselves, and we can define it for ourselves, if that makes sense.
What is manifestation?
Manifestation is, there's a few things. It all starts with mind first. Like, everything starts with a thought, and then from the thought, usually there's emotion, or there's some sort of like energy that moves. It could be through the throat, and then something material is formed. So manifestation is like it's an idea that through some vector gets brought into the material world. The voice is the most powerful manifestation tool, though.
Your words are seeds.
Yeah. And their vibration. Like, I'm changing the pressure in this room.
The pressure?
Yeah. So there's like this room is fluid because of the grace, but let's say we're in like a room, a set amount of volume, set amount of pressure with some air ventilation, but I literally will change the pressure by using my voice because it's vibrating through the air.
Okay. So the tone of voice that you use will change the vibration of the air. Like, what is sound? It's just vibration.
Yeah.
So when you're speaking, you are sending a certain vibration. And if the frequency of your voice is higher, not necessarily the tone of the voice, but the frequency is higher, then the pressure in the room will increase because the particles will vibrate faster. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, exactly. Like, I'm actually, I'm changing your physiology to a degree, or we're manipulating each other through the vibratory quality of our voice and where that voice comes from. Like, if I say to you, like, if I'm setting a boundary and I go, no, and it just comes from my head, no, no. Or if I ground in my solar plexus, no, that's not for me.
Completely different feeling.
Yeah.
The first one I actually felt up here. The second one I actually felt here.
Right.
Where you said you bought it from.
Yeah. Yeah. So our voice is, now we're kind of, I like this tangent because it's vibration. Like, vibration is super powerful, and we have something to manipulate vibration. And it's like this, this whole system that comes up. And when you learn to like actually like let these centers, like feeling safe, okay, passion's flowing, the engine is going, like our solar plexus, and then that allows it to move through the heart. And we actually speak through our heart. It's like super powerful. It's amazing.
Speak through your heart. So you're actually not speaking through the mind at all. It's like you're not thinking about what you're speaking.
Depends.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, I've definitely been super stuck or talking in my head. But when I got a breathwork journey, there's no head.
There's no mind. There's no thought. It's coming from here.
Yeah. It's like coming from here. Sometimes it's so coming from here that I can feel the whole room.
Wow.
It's like, it's amazing, man. Like, I don't know how to describe it. Like, I feel like I can tune into the whole room. And like, as I'm like speaking, I don't know how to describe it. It feels like I'm emoting with them. It's so beautiful. I've cried. It's so beautiful. Like,
yeah, of course. This is interesting. I'm diving into quite a lot of this stuff around heart, gut intelligence as equal or even greater centers of human intelligence down the brain. The idea that what if the brain is at service to the intelligence of the heart? What if the heart is actually made of neurons, or not made of, but has neural tissue, and has a separate it acts as the main center of intelligence for the body, and feeds on more data than the mind does. So maybe the mind has this sensory data, but the heart has this feeling type data, which it picks up from an energetic field.
Mm-hmm.
And so the mind becomes a tool of the heart. Most people, have been exploring this more. I've been exploring being present with my heartbeat. I've been exploring placing my attention here. I mean, something I learned from meditation was how to place my attention in different parts of my body. Like, I'd spend quite a lot of time in my feet.
Yeah.
Just if you're walking, the way that I practice walking meditation is I walk in my feet.
Mm-hmm.
And when you practice a lot of meditation, you start to recognize that this low center of attention is very arbitrary. Like, we only believe that we are up here because this is where the data from the eyes looks like it is registering. But what if your center was here? What if your center was in your knee? It could be there, and you can live from there. You can actually experience being in that place. And I was saying all this because do you have experience moving into heart center, and what kind of practices do you use to get into that place and better live from and embody your heart? Because we're talking about personal experience being valuable. We're talking about, what's the word for personal data?
Like anecdote?
We're talking about anecdotal experiences being incredibly valuable and undervalued by society. Well, how can I personally more deeply embody my heart space?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think the easiest way is, well, I think a really good first step, what I teach my clients is I always prime them and let them know that they're remembering how to do something they already know how to do.
Cool.
So I think that's a really important frame of mind, because then you're already putting on a lens that says, I know how to do this, aka my body knows how to do this. So you're surrendering to the wisdom of the body now. So I need to explain a few things, because it's like, if I could just be like, yeah, like sit and like, do a meditation, do some breathing, even like there's certain self-pleasuring practices that can really open the heart. I could just tell a person that, but I think that especially for a man, it's like getting these mental barriers out of the way opens things up. It's like, instead of like bashing down the door, we can just give them a key and they can open the door. So that's the first one. It's like, remember that you, as in all that you are, your physiology has a natural way of doing this, like to accessing your heart. Second is knowing that, Second is knowing that your body is like this divine, it's biotech, right? And it has a way of doing things that your brain doesn't understand. It's like your mind, the way you think, it's like body's doing like countless things right now as we speak. And the people who are watching this, like so many things, it would take a whole lifetime just to list out all the things. It's profound. It's amazing. So we can just land in that for a moment and be like, okay, all of this technology is available to me and commanding all these types of cells. Well, how? Through my attention. We know that through the, what's that experiment? The split, electron experiment, where they shot electrons through a slit. And then if they're observing it, it did something different. What you focus on manipulates the material reality to a degree. There's a co-creation. So when you close your eyes, imagine what happens. You're not interacting with that anymore. You go in. You start to go into the felt experience. I'm creating all these frames so we can understand like the power of it, and we remember the power of it. The last one that comes to mind is like knowing that the head and the heart and like kind of the lower body, or like the kind of like the solar plexus and the sacral, they're like cauldrons of containers of energy, and the head is like not very big at all. It doesn't hold that much energy. It's not good at doing that. The heart can get overheated according to like more of a traditional Chinese medicine type of practice. And then the lower dantian here is like the best reservoir for energy. So truly and simply, with all that in mind, if you sit and you like breathe and you feel the weight of your pelvis move down, that's a great place to start. And like letting that be your practice, moving down and learning how to breathe into those areas. In time, you can learn how to move and just feel the cycling of the energy from down in the body up into the heart. But it's so simple that our brain doesn't like it.
Like the complexity bias.
Exactly. It's like, what do you mean I just like sit there and breathe? Well, Yeah, that's the funny thing is like sometimes it takes a lot of practice and a lot of nuance to get to a place where it's like I can literally take 30 deep breaths and then I'm like in an absolute state of bliss, bro. I'm gone.
Okay.
And it's taken me a long time to get there.
We've been doing breath work every day, half an hour, as kind of a group morning ritual. It sounds like it's clear that there are levels to this breathwork game. I mean, what I'm getting out of this experience versus what you're getting out of this experience sounds completely different.
It's different when I'm there though, because I'm like in a teaching kind of holding space. Yeah.
Or what you're capable of getting out of an experience like that.
Yeah. That's what yes. Not to cut you off, but that's it. It's like the deeper you go, the simpler it becomes.
Yeah, quite a lot of time in breathwork, I'm frustrated that I'm not accessing a more enjoyable or profound place. I remember that's a spiritual rabbit hole. We talk about that's a spiritual bypassing type of effect. Could you go into a little bit the kind of places you're putting your attention and the kind of practice that you're doing? What makes your practice different than mine that gives you different results than I get out of breathwork, other than just the length of time that you've done it for?
For sure. I want to break it up into kind of some pillars, or I call them pillars, different aspects of our experience. I'll talk about the physical, because I think people watching this will probably enjoy, and you too. There's certain physical things I've learned how to do with my breathing that have helped a lot. So for example, I know how to move my body to move the breath down and up so that it moves down into my abdomen first and up in my chest. So usually that's like, so I can and even when I'm just like with my spine regularly, I've learned how to create the wave. So it goes down in my abdomen, up into my chest and relaxes out. So it's very natural for me to breathe through my diaphragm down and then up into my chest. I don't really breathe so much into my chest initially. It used to be a lot of people do that.
Yeah.
So I can like access that. So then it's like I've become really good at breath holds. And so on an inhale breath hold after doing a bunch of cyclical breathing, I will, a lot of people, they pull up, which I do like doing. But if you really want to start working with your lower regions and locking yourself down, you actually pull all the energy down physically. So if I take a breath in, I can squeeze up. And then while I hold my perineum, so the bottom gate is closed, I bring my abdomen out and I physically feel it, and I also energetically imagine I'm pulling everything down into my root, which if you do correctly, you get pretty lightheaded. And also I start to feel some heat. It's like everything starts to get heavy. It almost can feel quite pleasurable, to be honest. So that is another physical technique that I've gotten really good at. And then, okay, so those are the physical things that I'll mention. Is like learning how to do breath holds properly, locking your bandhas. Actually, that's one last thing. So holding the perineum, drawing in the abdomen, locking in the chin, so you create a clear conduit for the energy to cycle, move up. Yeah, this is like a weird one. It's supposed to, there's actually a pump in between your cervical spine and where thoracic spine meets, and around, I think it's L4. Yeah, there's a little pump that moves cerebral spinal fluid up and down the spine. Yeah, creates electric current. So those physical aspects, because I've practiced well over 10,000 hours of breath work, for sure. Well, at least my own practice. So that's like very natural for me. And then, so that's the physical. Maybe emotionally, mentally, I've done enough breath work where I've gone to the point where it's like, I'm like kind of losing consciousness, but I'm not. And that is a very freaky thing for our ego. It's like, usually we freak out a little bit. You've ever had that moment where it's like, whoa, what's happening? I'm chill. I can be really chill there. And what I've noticed is that as I keep, like sometimes, let's finish this moment. This is so good. Oh my goodness. Sometimes it still happens where I go like, whoa, what's happening? But, this is my practice right now, is learning to like, so I feel that lightheadedness. I feel that shift. I'm like, okay. My body's like, you're going to pass out. You're going to pass out. No, I'm not. It's going to be okay. And I relax. And then I will release my air. That's when I'm doing an inhale, breath, hold. And I can feel everything starting to dissipate, my body, like everything. And I can relax into that. It's like relaxing into the void. And that is something that's taken me a long time to cultivate. And moving into that space while being peaceful and grounded is where that ecstasy comes from. Not resisting it.
Surrender.
Yeah. And surrendering into it. And those are the moments where I've been like, whoa, like I'm at peace right now. Like it's a moment of elated peace, and it feels like all the things that I'm like, oh my God, it feels amazing. But that ability has taken time and willingness, and also like, you know, just patience. So yeah, that's like how I would say I've been able to like get to that state, and like the physical aspect, the emotional aspect, the mental aspect. And yeah, I guess the energetic aspect, I haven't demonstrated a lot, but sometimes I'll intuitively like touch certain parts of my body, and I've allowed myself to, I made an agreement with myself about 3 years ago, maybe 4 years ago. How long has it been? It's been a few years ago where I was like, I really want to understand energy. I want to understand how energy works and like, what is this? And I did something that I think was really wise. I decided, I was like, I know how to work with my energy. And I decided that I knew how to do that. And ever since then, I've been like, I'll just do certain things or speak certain things or like move in certain ways. And for me, that's moving my energy. And it's resulted in these profound experiences. It resulted in me feeling really connected and grounded and like in states of peace. So longer explanation, but I really wanted to offer that.
I would love to go deep on this another time, but I just want to take it back out for the last bit and say that this is just another example for me of how important it is in whatever endeavor you're trying to do to get around people who are already good at the thing. Like, you can watch as much content as you want, you can read as many books as you want, but if you're not spending time with people who are already good at the thing you want to do, you're not going to get it. And that's the hard truth that I didn't want to hear for the longest time, because that's hard. It's like, I want to be good at business. You need to be around people who are good at business. And that's a hard truth.
It is.
I want to be good at breathwork. You need to be good around people who are good at breathwork, because it's these nuances, it's these tiny things that you're talking about that you pick up through osmosis, through subconscious spending time with the person, the tiny habits, the tiny changes that you can't express in words, that you can't express through video. Lion, thank you.
Dude, thank you, brother.
It's powerful.
Dude, it's been awesome. Just part one. More to come.
What's come?
Part one, baby.
Let's go.
Let's go. That was awesome.